Good morning, everyone. My name is Ron Ford, of course, and it is Friday, June 17th, the hour at 10 a.m., and we're ready to start our Jobs Committee meeting. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Iqbal, Kopi,
Kopi is present.
Lewis,
Lewis here.
Molina,
Molina present.
Wallace, Davis, Ford.
Board present.
You have quorum.
Thank you. Can I get a motion and a second for approval of our minutes from May 13th, 2022?
Molina
Lewis
will
motion.
Can I get a second?
Kopi.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Clerk, can we please have a roll call for a vote?
Kopi,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Ford.
Ford, yes. All right, thank you. To get right into our meeting now, I believe we have our Office of Community Reinvestment, our Workforce Development Division, so our financial report.
Good morning, Chairman Ford. This is Scott Berger. I know we're running behind schedule, so we'll keep our remarks very brief. From page 2 to the end of your agenda packet, you'll find our monthly financial reports. My colleague Maria Gonzalez is on the phone, and at this time, I'd like to call on her to walk you through those reports. Maria?
Thank you, Scott. Good morning, everyone. In your packet, starting on page 3, is the report for the WIOA 20 grant. This grant ends on June 30th of this year. The last of the expenses have come through with June dates, and that was due to the timing of when we received the information not aligning with our AP cycles within the county. Our direct training benchmark for the month of April still has remained constant at 46%. I know with the program team, they are working very hard to ensure that we get closer to the 50. Hope remains, at least I can say that for my part, that we will attain that benchmark, but it's still up in the air. We have some OJT on the job training activity that has occurred. For the WIOA carry-in grant, we've spent $44,000 for adult and dislocated, and the remaining $11,000 that you see on the memo, that will be paid in June. For our WIOA 21 grant, we have been working diligently to ensure that we do everything possible to hit our 80% obligation training, our obligation benchmark, pardon me. There have been the contracts that have been coming in that are being executed that I can report that will get us to the 80%. The on-the-job training activity for this new WIOA 21 grant, we have spent $10,000 to date for adult only. However, there is $60,000 out there for dislocated. And we have 3 projects for incumbent worker that total $87,000. On page 5 of your packet, you will see the trade grant activity. We have until September 30th to fully spend down the award that was received there. There you will note that 70% of that allocation has been spent on training, and the activity continues at a steady pace for that grant. The remaining pages is just the detail of the accounts payable that have occurred for the month. Any questions?
Any questions, comments for Maria? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Comments by co-chair. I don't have any well, I will. We're gonna be working to put together our agenda for the rest of the year. And so if any of the board members want to have any input on ideas, please send it to to Chris or myself or Mark, so we can start putting it together. I want to have it done within the next couple of weeks if possible. So we're gonna move on to number 5, our Jobs Committee priorities, our Economic Development Summit highlights. I think Mark is gonna.
Great. Yeah, good morning, Mark Van Kerkhoff. I want to thank the board for supporting the ability for us to be members in the Illinois Economic Development Association, which is a not-for-profit organization statewide that works with economic development staff and organizations throughout the state. And I was able to attend their summit earlier this month. Couple of key things from the event. One is that the now former president of the board for the organization was Brian Gay, who is the executive director at Invest Aurora. What is normally a one-year term, he served 3 years because of the pandemic. They kind of kept holding him on. But it was really an exciting event because this was the first time in 3 years that it was able to be held in person. It was at a beautiful venue downtown. He had a great turnout from the people around the state in person, but also all of the state agencies were well represented in giving updates and presentations. So that was really exciting to hear. Friday morning was kicked off with a visit and comments from Governor Pritzker, who is very passionate about economic development in the state of Illinois, and that was also exciting to hear. A couple other highlights. Maybe you can go to the agenda slide for me. Oh, I'm sorry. You put it the agenda from the.
Yeah, it's
Oh, okay.
it's on the slide deck that was just up.
I'm sorry. There's a different slide at the. Sorry, Blair. He is very keyed in. Back to the PowerPoint. We have a slide with just to give you a flavor of the agenda from the.
It's not moving. Oh. There we go. Sorry, it was off.
Yeah, right there. So I'm just going to kind of run you briefly through some of the highlights. But opening remarks by World Business Chicago, very exciting. They have a new executive director and leader who is very, came out of the private sector, very regionally focused. That's really kind of a game changer in the region, and I'll update more on the regional initiatives, but just WBC really being all in working with the Collier counties and the community was big. There was a section on talent attraction and a couple of things. I think many of us intuitively know that a lot of our youngest, best and brightest go out of state to universities and organizations around the United States, and a lot of them don't come back. That's a common issue across the state. One of the stats just statewide was that 40% of our new nurses being trained in Illinois are leaving the state. I can only imagine that might even be higher in Kane County, which is significant for our hospital and healthcare industry because we have 5 hospitals and are kind of a hub for healthcare. And we have a number of really good nursing programs at Aurora University, our community colleges, and Northern Illinois University. But one tool that kind of intrigued me was the idea what they call reverse scholarships. So some communities are beginning to work with their community foundations, of which ours is the Fox Valley Community Foundation, or other organizations that give scholarships to students in our communities that they use oftentimes to attend in other parts of the country and maybe don't come back. So other communities are working on with the reverse scholarship. And the notion is that when they complete their education, as an incentive to come back, it'd be a scholarship that they could use to pay down their student debt and student loans that they may have accrued as an incentive for them to come back to the community they grew up in and work. So I think that's something worth looking at with a number of our organizations that do scholarships. There's a session on doing business in Japan. There are 60 companies in Illinois with 150,000 employees. A lot of that is in manufacturing. There's a lot of potential, working with Japan and Germany and our other major foreign players, the UK, particularly with our companies that are going to be going through transitions. That kind of investment could be helpful. It's also good for attracting new businesses when we have a hub and learn a little bit more about how to welcome those companies and welcome those folks that come with it. There's also learned along with the consulate, which there's a lot of consulates in Chicago, which is a benefit. There's a organization called the Japan External Trade Organization, and they're very interested in meeting with businesses and with our agricultural community on trade opportunities. There's a session on trends in marketing that was also interesting, mainly just to be updated. One of the presenters was DeKalb County, just to our west. They've had some growth along the I-88 corridor with data centers, and they explained how they worked in a very cooperative effort with Northern Illinois University, the chambers, other organizations. They've have their current marketing is branded as Opportunity Unbound. One of their projects, Facebook or now Meta, is opening one of their facilities in DeKalb and needing to work with local developers and home builders and marketing what's available to do as a way for Meta to attract customer or their employees to relocate. A number of our communities, including Elburn, Geneva, Aurora, are within commuting distance, so that also has an impact on Kane County. Intersect Illinois, under the recent new leadership of Dan Seals, is also very engaged across the state. They just launched a campaign called Be in Illinois. And their first emphasis has been, along with the state DCO, on EV vehicles and supporting businesses. But their next phase of focus is on agribusiness. And that's significant for us. They've invited anyone to forward companies that they feel would be good to woo to come to Illinois. So I'll put that out there to the committee members. If you're aware of any companies in the agribusiness sector or food processing sector that you think, wow, they should be in Illinois, pass that information on to Chris and I, and we'll pass it on to Intersect, and they're willing to make those contacts and make the pitch to do that. Also DCEO, they break the state down in representatives, what they call Team Red, their regional economic development team. Joe McCowan, I think many of you know, is still on that team. They also added a few members to the team for the Northeast region. Some of the things coming up for them, they're going to be announcing soon a $50 million grant program for startups to occupy vacant spaces. So that'll be an interesting opportunity, both to way to support startup businesses that are growing and need to move out of somebody's house or are ready for a storefront, and to address what many of our communities have in terms of vacant spaces. So we'll be watching that one. We are excited as one of the applicants for the RISE planning grants. We hope to have those announced in July. I apologize, I was not here last month to report that Chris and I completed an application on behalf of Kane County for a RISE planning grant. We're asking for the maximum amount of $150,000 that would be used for doing a strategic economic development plan countywide for Kane County. I want to thank Chris for his work on it. Fortunately, we had a target to get it done before the application due date, which was good because Chris and his wife had a beautiful baby boy. And I went down with COVID, so we're thankful to get it in early. But we're waiting for the results of that. But one of the advantages with the RISE planning grant program is they expect to continue to fund the RISE program to actually implement some of the projects that get identified in those planning activities. They did some covering on foreign direct investment. Again, we have Chicago as a global city, and there's just a lot of opportunity with that. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but thank you for letting me share just a overview of what was covered over 2 days. Thank you.
All right, I have a few. One is you keep hearing about, when you talked about the nurses earlier, and not that we know the answer today, about because of the pandemic, from being fatigued, that a lot of nurses are leaving the actual business of being nurses, the profession, and going elsewhere. I saw a special on one that she started being a truck driver. That, and I don't know if there's any statistics on that.
I can look into that for you.
Okay, and then I wouldn't mind learning more about the reverse scholarships, and I know we're on our move to. Well, I'll save my next question for B, but it's good to hear about the app. I knew about the application because you guys had sent me some text messages about it. It's going to be good to see how we get a chance to use that and get to our next step with economic development initiative. Any other questions or comments for Mark?
So Louis, just thanks for sharing, Mark. It sounds like it was definitely a good couple days. I'm kind of impressed that a lot of the presentations were done by local people. We had, DeKalb, I see down here, the Village of Sugar Grove was presenting. So that's nice to see that we have a lot of activity close to home instead of just Chicago.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, I meant to mention that Brian Kay is now the former chairman of the board of directors for the organization. But Michael Casso, who is recently hired by the Village of Sugar Grove, is the current chairman of the board leading that group. So we still have a very direct connection to the organization through Michael's leadership now.
All right. Anything else?
Then I just have a regional update. Chris and I continue to be involved with CMAP and their leadership and looking at regional economic development on a two-prong initiative. One is through a consultant hired by CMAP for the regional work called TIP Strategies. They are progressing with their work. One of the exciting aspects of their work is a very sophisticated and detailed look at the different industry clusters and the types of job available in those cluster sectors by what's required for educational or credentialing, what the potential growth is, pay scale, the type of work. And this is collected regionally and aggregated regionally, but also be able to be looked at county by county. So Chris doesn't know this yet, but we're going to have an opportunity to be trained on how to use what they're coming up with and do a deeper dive into it. But it'll be very, very exciting for the region, very exciting for the county to help us have a tool to understand industry and job growth and potential. The other prong of that effort is being led by the Brookings Institute. Maybe you recall we hosted one of their regional convenings here in the county boardroom. Had great participation from our local partners and business leaders. Their work continues as they hone in on things that are best to focus with the region. Again, there's a lot of really a whole new level of regional collaboration developing, which is very exciting. And there'll be another convening and update of their work regionally in July. So we'll be able to report back on that most likely in August with that. So one of the nice benefits of us doing our countywide strategic plan and looking at an economic development organization is that we'll be able to plan that in the context and taking advantage of a lot of the things that are going to be available regionally, which should both be great for coordination as well as cost savings to what we may ultimately propose to stand up. So that I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions, comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on.
Thank you. It's good to be back. I listened to last month's Jobs Committee recording, and there was a lot of great conversation had between Madam Chair and the Jobs Committee about what information you were looking for in terms of some statistics. So in this month's monthly report, I just brought back some of the things I'd been talking about. I haven't done one of these since March, so I just wanted to cover a few brief topics about kind of where we're at with some information with Kane County, and then where the economy of the country is looking. So just wait for those pop. Thank you, Blair. So what am I covering today? I'm just going to cover some unemployment numbers, a little bit about inflation, a little bit about gas prices, a little bit more about food prices. I hear this word a lot, so I just wanted to kind of briefly talk about the recession, what that means and what defining it is. And then I wanted to kind of cap it off with some interesting notes that I found about the Federal Reserve's thoughts on our current wages situation. So if anyone has any questions throughout this, please feel free to just stop me at that point or wait till the end. Either works for me. So first things first, our unemployment rate. Just to bring it in unison with the most updated data, I did not use the seasonally adjusted numbers, but as of May, Kane sits at about 5.3% unemployment, which is almost 2% higher than the national employment. But the first thing to note of concern was that first uptick in May from the national unemployment to go up. My concern is that's probably going to be the trend that you'll see with Illinois and Kane once those numbers are posted, which should probably be towards the end of this month or early July. I'm really trying to dig into the data why Kane is 2 points higher than the rest of the nation, but unfortunately at this time I don't have that exact information. So it's something I want to keep an eye out for. One of the things that Madam Chair asked for in the May Jobs Committee meeting was just unemployment by race. And that is a challenging metric to find. I did find one website that did it by quarter. So the latest data we have for the whole state of Illinois. So unemployment by race in Illinois, just the all unemployment was 4.8%. For whites, it was 3.5%. For Black, it was 12.2%. For Hispanics, it was 5.3%. Unfortunately, there's no data for Asian Americans or Pacific Islanders. Just some other highlights that I saw on the site that I want to share, but in DC has the highest Black to white unemployment ratio of 7.2 to 1. And then Georgia has the lowest Hispanic to white unemployment ratio of 0.8 to 1, which was interesting. And then just nationwide, the Black to white unemployment ratio is 2.2 to 1. So that's something I'm going to keep an eye on too. And I want to dig in more just to how they pull those numbers, because most unemployment statistics are reported just as general reporting from businesses and don't have race attributed to it. This is our inflation chart. We had a nice little dip in May. That was nice, but we're back up to 8.6%. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing any data that would point to any sort of flatlining or declining of it. I probably think we might even go up another 1/10% or a little higher next month. The trends of just prices increasing for general goods are continuing. So, and we saw some intervention this week, which I'll talk about in a minute, but it just looks like it's going to continue to go up. So talking about inflation, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the consumer price index. just for the major categories, so food, energy, and inflation. Food's gone up over 10% over the year. Energy, so energy just means gas plus all the other forms of energy. So overall has gone up almost 35%, which our core inflation, so everything less than food, is 6%. But you know, those are scary numbers when you start to look at what the impacts that they're having on the economy. And I found another chart that kind of breaks down the food inflation. So food at home is just most general goods that are purchased at a grocery store. Those are almost 12%. Cereal and bakery products, 11.5%, and looking to rise. The big one, of course, is meat, poultry, fish, and eggs. And dairy-related products have just been through the roof. Makes me feel a little bit better about eating healthy when fruits and vegetables are the ones that are increasing at the lowest rate. But beverages that are non-alcoholic and things to make beverages, up by 12%. Other food at home, I couldn't find the definition of that, but it's just probably different types of unhealthy food have gone up almost 13%. Food away from home is a broad category, but it includes restaurants, food service, food trucks, anything where people are buying prepared food outside of the house. And that's gone up 7.5%. So this is just over the year period. It's a snapshot. Again, I'm just not seeing anything that would predict a decline in any of these numbers. If anything, a lot of trends look like they're going to increase. And then
Chris?
this is, yes.
Mr. Chairman, Bates, please.
Go ahead, Mavis.
So what about the Fed hike? Do you see that that'll bring inflation down? That's the plan, right?
Yes, and I will be addressing that because on
Okay.
June 15th, yeah, they increased it 0.75%. So yep, that
Okay,
I have some
thank
comments
you.
on that. Thank you, Mavis. And then this is just a comparative analysis of the food inflation that we've seen over the last 10 years. So we saw general ups and downs prior to the pandemic. The first year of the pandemic was a little bit painful, and 2021 was also painful. But the thing about the 10.1% for 2022 is we've still got about another 6 months to go. So again, I'm not, just trying to keep everyone abreast of what the data is. And so talking about gasoline, the top 5 most expensive gas by state, Illinois is number 3 compared. So we're only behind California and Nevada. So this is the most recent snapshot I could find, which was June 10th. So on average in the state of Illinois, it was $5.56 per gallon. But what's interesting is that we're also in the top 5 states where the gas price increased the most month over month. So, and it might be a little difficult to read, but Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, and Wisconsin, it's kind of odd, but all of the Midwestern states saw the biggest increase in gas from May to June. And our increase here in Illinois was 18.4%. One of the things that I did know research into was Illinois is also the number 2 highest gas tax state for just gas tax alone, which is 39.2 cents per gallon. And then if some of you may know in the news recently, states such as Maryland, Connecticut, Georgia, Florida, and New York have already suspended their gas taxes. And their gas taxes are anywhere between a dime to a quarter per gallon. Our neighbors to the east in Michigan have been trying but failing to repeal both the gas and the sale, or I'm sorry, not repeal, to put a pause on both the sales tax and the gas tax related to gasoline, which would be about 50 cents a gallon, but that's stuck in the mud. So we're just seeing other states just try to react quickly to this. Gas prices just seep into everything else that we're purchasing. So we're just, again, just data that I want everyone to be aware of. But just jumping a little bit to what is a recession? I've heard that word tossed around a lot, and whether we should wait for the federal government to declare a recession. And I'm all for that. I'm not an economist, so I can't say what is or what isn't. But the general term for recession is that the GDP of our country has 2 quarters of decline. The thought is that a healthy economy expands over time. So 2 quarters of a row of contracting output suggests there are serious underlying problems. This is the standard definition that most people use, and it's probably the best still. I did put on there the NBER's definition is namely a significant decline in the economic activity spread across the economy lasting more than a few months, normally visible in real GDP, real income, employment, industrial production, and wholesale retail sales. So it's a little bit more inclusive. It's got more variables, but both of those kind of point to the same thing. Here's our GDP for the last year and a half. We had some really great growth towards the end of 2020. 2021 was good. I did want to make a note that Q3 of 2021 was probably a really good indicator of things to come. Q4 did have the holiday season, so that typically has a big boost. We had really great holiday season this year. Sales were great given the economy. But then Q1, we had our first dip. We had a negative 1.1% growth. And so if we see that again, and the Q2 number should be coming out probably sometime after the 4th of July holiday. If we see two of those, I wouldn't be surprised if we hear the recession word dropped. But again, I'm not one to make that call. And I know I'm moving pretty fast. So again, please stop me if anyone has any questions, but I'm about to get to my last slide because this one is something that a lot of us my age heard on the internet, and we didn't see a lot in the news. And I did source my article on there. But when the Federal Reserve was asked on May 4th about what they were doing to kind of fight inflation, our chairman of the US Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, said his goal is to get wages down. And that was a little disheartening to hear. These are just direct quotes from him. Wages are running high, the highest they've run in quite some time. He said workers need to be disciplined by the labor market. There's a path to which we would be able to have demand moderate in the labor market and therefore have vacancies come down without unemployment going up. Because vacancies are such an extraordinary high level, there are 1.9 vacancies for every unemployed person. So 11.5 million vacancies, 6 million unemployed people. Math works out. But they aim to do this by reducing wages. And the thought would be is that maybe if the interest rates go higher, that will contract businesses enough to pull off some of those vacancies. And when vacancies go down, that typically gives less leverage to the employees, and that leverage means wages will decrease. So that's our national policy is looking to, so it kind of flies in the face a little bit of what we've seen in terms of wage growth over the last few years. And I'm still trying to process this and learn a little bit more about it, but I do encourage everyone to just look into a little more to see what this monetary policy is, because we at the Jobs Committee have been working hard to celebrate those businesses that have increased the wages and increasing opportunity for our employees in Kane County. So, and then to what Mavis had brought up, just on June 15th, there was a interest rate hike of 0.75%. It was originally planned to be about 0.5%, but after the economic data came out towards early June, that pushed the Fed to move a bit quicker. We were expecting, before my son was born, we were expecting probably to see about a 1 to 1.25% interest rate hike for the whole year. Given the circumstances of inflation, I wouldn't be surprised if we see an at least full 2% increase this year alone. I have a feeling that they're going to probably push another 0.75 to a 1% at the next hike in a few months. And they're going to just kind of feel it as it go. But we are going to see a rapid increase of interest rates, and we're going to have to kind of bear the brunt of that. So after all the good news, I'm here for any questions or comments, and just want to give it back to you, Ron.
All right.
Question, please.
Go ahead.
I am a news junkie, and I did not hear the Chairman Powell say he wanted to get wages down. Wasn't there quite a bit about corporate profits being out of line at the moment?
That is a part of it as well. But going back to it, yeah, there was a reason why this didn't make a lot of news, because it's a pretty scary thought for a lot of people to have.
It's pretty awful.
That our Federal Reserve's policy to fight, one of them is to fight inflation, is to reduce wages. But unfortunately, it does make sense, because our wage growth over the last few years, given the pandemic, given a lot of states have really pushed, have increased minimum wage. There's been a lot of wage gains in a lot of areas as well. There's just been a lot of quick changes to wages, and that's their thoughts on reducing it. corporate profits, I don't really have a comment on because I'm not too sure about that. I can look into it, but again, that's something else that has to be addressed as well, because I
Okay,
know that
thank you.
there's record profits, but wages aren't matching those record profits.
Thank you.
So Louis, question,
ahead, Louis.
permission? Okay. So I'm not the economist either, but I'm a WGN junkie. And the one thing, as far as the wages, it's they're not talking about minimum wage, because I think we still have to, keep increasing the minimum wage to stand there. But what they have been talking about is the middle class is shrinking.
Yes.
And, so we've got to get those lower wages continuing to go up. But then that higher class is the ones that we really have to, rein back and get some of those wages down so that we bring in that middle class again. If that makes any sense.
Yes, that does make
Yes.
sense. And I would just encourage everyone to really look into a lot of what the Federal Reserve is actually saying, because that is, you're right, on WGN, I just wish a lot more of what they were saying like this was making more of the news, because it might scare the average person. But any tinkering with wages is going to have some effect. But yeah, I would love to see more of the middle class wages continue to rise as they have.
Any other questions? Sorry. Any other questions or comments? I just have a few. One is looking at the growth of electric cars. What does Kane County has in place to go after that type of business to come to Kane County is one. Two is I don't quite understand the whole part of how dropping the wages down, how that part of that thinking. I need to look at that and try to observe it a little bit more. So if we can get a copy of that presentation, that would be great.
And then your first point to reacting to electric vehicles, or what, unfortunately, right now, we don't have anything in the county that I think we have as a tool to
Yeah,
attract that manufacturing.
and that's a question. What does it take to just out of curiosity, at least, what is needed and what do we already have in place to attract that type of business?
Sure. So one, I would say that, that question helps underscore the need to have a Kane County, countywide economic development
Yes,
organization to
yes.
go after that. The state, obviously, they're going after it hard. MHub is leading a regional effort to get federal dollars for EV and clean energy initiative. The state has put a lot of credits and initiative into EV infrastructure. So our municipalities, in their individual programs could be going after, some of these businesses and manufacturing. They are working regionally. One good examples, Lion is going to be producing electric trucks down in Will County, and the engineering firm that does a lot of the work for that is going to locate in DuPage County. So there are examples of companies coming to the region for that, that, maybe the county lines are less important as much as, being in the Chicago region, being in the state. But that's something that if we had a, countywide organization, we could go after as a specific, and that's one of the things we looked that would come out of that countywide strategic plan,
Okay.
identifying clusters and markets, and looking towards that. The other thing I'll just plug also shamelessly is our department's applications for use of the American Rescue Plan dollars internally for 5 different initiatives that we have applications in for. I mentioned 2 at the last meeting, one for our agricultural economy programs, one for the Fabulous Fox Water Trail, There's one that we're sort of a pass-through, but we have a proposal from our two convention and visitor bureaus for countywide tourism, not just specific to the Fox River, but countywide. And one for the countywide economic development planning and standing up an organization. And then the fifth one, particularly working with IMEC in creating incentive for our manufacturers to work with IMEC. And that's another opportunity where some of our manufacturers could be planning for and pivoting to get some of those manufacturing contracts. Because it's not just about producing, actually assembling the vehicles. It's the state is looking at giving incentives to companies that are going to be part of that supply chain network. So we may have a company in Kane County that's already producing motors or components that could be contracted with some of the companies like Lion or Rivian downstate or whatever, and become part of that supply chain and cluster work. So that's another initiative that again would be pass-through money to help our manufacturers utilize a resource and leverage a resource to plan to be part of that economy.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. Board members, did you hear that? This ARP money is needed for us to get this initiative going in those three categories, right? Or four?
How
There's
could we
actually,
not
there's
hear
actually
that?
five.
Five, okay, five.
How could we not hear that?
All right, I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure. You know, it's Friday, people may drift off a little bit on Friday, thinking what they might be able to do on the weekends.
We're working on those internal requests as
All
fast
right,
as we can.
that's good, that's good. All right. Any other questions or comments? You guys have anything else? All right, we thank you for those. New business would be what I stated earlier, looking at what we want to do with our agenda for the rest of the year. Anything that you want to submit, please do. For the first time, I want to have a second roundtable discussion, and it's going to be on IT. I've talked to people out in the community, and I got a lot of people excited about it. We just need to pick which month we want to do it in. Part of that, you guys have any new business?
No.
All right, seeing nothing else, we have no public comments. Can I get a motion to put the reports on file?
Motion.
Okay, I think I heard enough to come for it to be a motion. Can I get a second? Kopi second. Any questions or comments? Clerk, please roll call vote.
Kopi,
Yes, Kopi.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Ford.
Ford, yes. We have no need for executive session. Can I get a motion and second for anonymous, for adjournment?
Lewis motions.
Lewis,
Kopi second.
Kopi seconds. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.